Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to episode number 91 of Thyroid Nation Radio live talk show and podcast. I'm Dana Bowman, founder of ThyroidNation.com.
And I'm Tiffany Mladinich of GratefulGarden.biz and Mending Medicine.
And today we are celebrating our 2-year anniversary. This is our anniversary show. Happy anniversary, honey. Can you believe it?
It has been an amazing 2 years.
I know. It has, and it's
thoroughly
really
enjoyable.
Just flown by. Wow, I can't believe it.
I know.
Amazing.
Right? 2 years.
I can't. I know. I mean, I love that we only have 91 shows, or I say only, but, as opposed to, 52 weeks, because really that just, as a thyroid and adrenal patient myself, that just starts to make me anxious thinking about how many shows we could have done, and every single solitary week.
Oh, my goodness. I think it's been good. We have been able to interview some amazing people, just amazing people. It's really been an extraordinary journey.
I know. We are so very lucky, aren't we?
Yes, and we have one of our super favorites today.
Oh, no, we do. We are talking with the fabulous Dr. Aviva Romm about her newest book, Adrenal Thyroid Revolution. Da-da-da-da.
It's good. It is a revolution.
I know.
There's enough people with it, too, to make a revolution.
Cool. Exactly.
Of course, if you've missed any of the Thyroid Nation radio podcasts, you can very easily download and listen to them at your leisure while you're running, driving, whatever, on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all kinds of places you can connect with us. Did I lose you? Are you still there? My goodness, I think I lost you. What happened? Well, we will continue until she logs back in. She must be on mute or something. I don't know. Anyways, Dr. Aviva Romm is a Yale-trained medical doctor, herbalist, midwife, speaker, and author dedicated to optimal health for women and children. Dr. Romm is one of the nation's leaders in the field of botanical medicine and is the author of 7 books on natural medicine for women and children, including the textbook Botanical Medicine for Women's Health. Her newest book, The Adrenal Thyroid Revolution, a proven 4-week program to rescue your metabolism, hormones, mind, and mood, is amazing and on sale now. I have my own personal copy here sitting right next to me, and we are incredibly excited to have her back. Let's see. Dr. Romm is with us this morning. It looks like she is. Let's see if we can click her in. Good morning, Dr. Romm. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Hi, and please call me Aviva. I mean, you can call me Dr. Romm, but that just sounds so formal, doesn't it?
Well, it's a due respect. I mean, you've worked so hard to get that title, and you are truly one of my absolutely all-time favorite doctors.
Thank you.
And I'm not exactly sure what has happened to Dana, but we have temporarily lost her. I'm not exactly sure.
I heard.
I'm not exactly sure why. But we've never had that happen before. But she's calling in as the main number now that she's here in the States. So I normally do that, and this is our second time, so I'm not exactly sure what's happened. But we're still rolling, so we're just going to chat until we can get her back in. Haven't heard from her.
Adrenals are all about resilience and dealing with stress in the face of the unexpected, so we're all good, right?
Exactly right. And she's having kind of a rough morning, so I'm not sure what's happened, but it sounds like it's a connection problem. So, well, very good. So, welcome. How are you today?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is that, do you have a gentleman in the back?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Step to another area. Goodness.
It sounds like he might be working back there.
Yes. We're good.
So Fabulous. How are you today? What's on your wonderful agenda? I read that you're airing on Dr. Oz this afternoon, correct?
I am. My day started out babysitting my grandchildren, so I got big snuggles this morning, and that was really fun. And today is the day my newsletter goes out, so I've been working on that. And then we have a Dr. Oz episode airing at 1 o'clock, which is really fun. So it's a good day.
That is an amazing day.
Yeah.
And tell us about this this amazing book that you have that's out. I've got my copy right here, and I'm kind of in the midst of reading it, and it's amazing. So what's going on with the book?
Thank you. So, yeah, it's been an amazing journey. I spent my entire life working with women and hormonal issues. And, of course, cortisol and insulin are also hormones. I think as women we tend to think of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone as our primary hormones. And, I have to say when I was a midwife and when I went to medical school, I didn't anticipate that insulin and other hormones and cortisol were going to be so front and center in my work. But what I was seeing was woman after woman after woman in my practice, and women of all ages. I mean, really even starting in their kind of mid-teen years all the way into their 70s were struggling with a constellation of symptoms that when I broke it down, whether those symptoms were in their, around their menstrual cycles or around metabolism and weight gain or around food and appetite and cravings, gut health. I mean, there's so many different areas of health that when I started to take a really deep dive into what was going on in my patients, could come back to what was going on with cortisol. And a lot of us think about cortisol as a stress hormone, but really it's a survival hormone. And even more than that, it's the hormone that literally creates the regulation that orchestrates what's going on in your brain with every single cell in your body. And so whether your digestive system or your elimination system or your detoxification system or your hormonal system or your immune system or nervous system is working in harmony with the rest of your body or not, dials back entirely 100% to cortisol. So that is really where the book kind of originated, was sort of connecting the dots and what was going on with my patients. And then so many women were coming in with thyroid symptoms or thyroid problems, and many have spent years, I'm talking years and years, trying to figure out what was wrong with them. And going to medical doctors and being told, it's all in your head. The nice way of saying it's all in your head these days is it's stress or anxiety or depression, or being told they were just fine because their labs looked okay, but they knew something was wrong. They knew they didn't just gain 30 pounds in the last 3 months because they had changed their diet. Most of them hadn't. They knew it wasn't just depression or anxiety. They were actually feeling fine until they started noticing these changes, and maybe that's what was causing the depression and anxiety. So the book is really dedicated to women who are either struggling with symptoms and they don't know why, or feel like they have a clue why, but they're being told by the conventional medical model that, hey, you're actually fine. Exercise more, eat less, and try to deal with your stress.
And sadly, you hear that a lot,
Everything
looks good, everything looks normal, and people can still feel just absolutely like they're dying. It's crazy. I want to read 2 quick things from the beginning of your book to me that were just, I hate to say it, but I kind of got a little weepy. And I read them both because it really, I'm just going to read it. It says, to all women who have felt unseen and unheard, you are not invisible and you are not alone. To all who have been told it's all in your head, it is not. And to all who have felt like you've been sleeping for too long, rise and shine. Let's move mountains together. I can't believe I made it through that. Look at me. I just caught myself at the very end without getting all blubbery. But, having been one of those women, just, and of course look very healthy, and everyone's kind of like, what's your problem? That was just, to me, you couldn't have paraphrased that any better. And then on the next page, you turn it and it says, when sleeping women wake, mountains move.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a Chinese proverb. And when I heard that, I got chills. I thought, wow,
seriously,
this is
I have chills right now.
I just got chills right now.
And every time I said that quote to women, several people in the group like, wow, I just got chills. I don't know what it is about that. It's so primal almost. And, I feel like, to me, it's so grievous. It's just so incredibly sad. I have been very fortunate in that I started on this kind of natural living path when I was really young. I was 15. So I have walked through my life, and I'm 50 now, with a lot of skills and tools that I think have helped me sort of skirt around what could have been my fate also. But, as someone who, as a midwife, we really learn to listen to women and trust women and what women are saying is going on in our bodies and never dismiss that. And just listening to woman after woman after woman, I've been so struck by the comment and the feeling. Just one patient said to me recently, which made me get teary, is that she said, I feel like I'm standing on the platform and I'm just watching the train go by. And it's like this feeling that I'm seeing woman after woman have, that she just can't bring her gifts to the world. I mean, sometimes she's just struggling with showing up, as I'm sure you guys have experienced with your own thyroid odyssey and can speak to much better than I can. It's just that women struggling with the guilt, the grief, the burden, the weight of not being able to show up sometimes for their own kids or the things they want to do,
sure.
let alone the incredible beauty and power and talents that women can bring to the world that women can't when they're too tired and too overwhelmed. And so to me, more powerfully than anything, that's the revolution that this book is about, is helping women who are just tired to get their energy back so they can rock it, so they can really rock their own lives, but also think of, 30 million women alone we know have thyroid disease, mostly Hashimoto's, and we know that at least another half, again, don't have it and don't know it, but definitely have symptoms. And then, we haven't even started to touch on the complexities of how many women are struggling with adrenal issues that are holding them back and holding them down. So to me, the revolution is about women reclaiming their power, and you have to have the energy to do that first. But it's also about, it is time for the medical establishment to sit up and kind of shut up, excuse me for saying, but sort of shut up and start listening and using their tools in the service of women. I cannot tell you how many women have come into my practice who have been overtly insulted by a medical doctor when a woman said to her medical doctor, I think I might have an adrenal or thyroid problem, and who have had this comment said to them, well, where did you get your medical education? Google University? Right. Or who are you talking to, Dr. Google? Now, there are some really, really wonderful doctors out there, but even the wonderful ones were not taught in medical school how to respond to these chronic issues. But it's just time for this rude, condescending, patronizing behavior to stop. There are women who are struggling for 5 years with an autoimmune disease just to get a diagnosis. And I'm curious, did that happen to either of you? How long did it take you to get the answers you needed? And, did you have to kind of become your own activist to do that?
I definitely did.
Both
I definitely did. Yeah. Hi, Dr. Romm. Sorry to jump in a little bit late.
Welcome back.
No worries.
Yes. Thank you.
We're glad you made it.
Thank you. I don't know what happened. Happy anniversary. Wow. You'd think after 2 years I would have this down pat, but I don't know. Okay, so I think we talked about this on the show we had you on back in September, but I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's while living in Costa Rica, and they gave me the pill, and I thought it was fine, and then I got worse after a year, and that's when I started doing my research, and of course that's why I'm so passionate about helping raise awareness, because there's so much to know besides that, including your adrenals, and I believe that I crashed my adrenals. I kept going and kept exercising and pushed myself because I thought, well, exercise is good for me, and I just got worse, and I definitely still have lots to learn, but I'm still on my journey, and it did take a long time, and I think I was probably undiagnosed for many years. So definitely happened to me.
And your book couldn't have come at a better time for me, because I had sort of this process of, I was one of those patients who was super savvy based on, reading all of the different physicians online that are nice enough to take the time and blog. So when I went into my physician, I had a list of blood work and said, could you please draw this? Of course, I had a history of my mom being ill and long history of thyroid on both my mom and dad's side of the family. So I said, please draw all of this, including antibodies. So my thyroid was still holding its own, but I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, critically low B12, critically low vitamin D. I mean, I couldn't have been more classic. Yeah. So they said, we're going to wait and see, which took 4 years for my thyroid to actually fall in a treatable range, which I wouldn't recommend for anybody. But to wait and see, because that was a really disheartening. I'm like, wait and see what? Am I going to die? I can barely even function, and I have no cognitive, I had all of the symptoms of hypothyroidism without technically being, hypothyroid in a TSH, T4, situation. But then after I finally went on thyroid hormone and, corrected my B12 and vitamin D, then I was still having just these, I would refer to it as crushing fatigue. So then I asked to be tested for Epstein-Barr, which, of course, my titers were sky high, and I'm sure that was playing a huge role in all of that. But that was 2 years after and still not well. And so now I've got, that at bay, and thyroid looks good, and I've gotten so much of my cognition and energy and function back. But now I'm missing that, creativity and motivation and wit and everything that I had before, which all falls, from what I understand, in the adrenal gland. So I'm ready for your book, girl.
Oh, yay. Well, I think that, there are so many things that you say that are so rich and so important. And one is this issue of being told to wait and see. I spent 25 years as a home birth midwife and an herbalist before I became a doctor. And I'm the first person to try to get people off of medications when they don't need them and to prevent people from being overdiagnosed, which is so common in the medical model.
Right.
I mean, we've got overdiagnosis left and right. So the irony is here I'm working with a condition that women are largely being underdiagnosed for. And I think this brings up an important point of gray area in medicine. I was just reading an article about a month and a half ago in the Journal of the American Medical Association. I'm really geeky, and I still read my conventional medical journals to keep up with what's going on in the medical world. And they have a case history in many of the issues. And this particular case history was a woman who was in her 50s, extremely fatigued, having cognitive problems, having a slow heart rate, not feeling well, constipated, losing her hair. You guys are already knowing where I'm going with this. And her TSH, her thyroid stimulating hormone, which is the number that is usually the lab that is usually checked and the one that's in the biggest controversy, was over 10. Now, according to even conventional medicine, over 5 gives you the classification of hypothyroidism. But doctors have the discretion between 5 and over 10 to call it subclinical hypothyroidism. So here's this woman who can't get out of bed. Her hair is falling out. She's feeling horrible. She's having cognitive problems. Cognitive problems are not a joke. I mean, we kind of all joke about, brain fog and where did I put my keys, but cognitive problems is a pathway to dementia. This is a really serious issue. And thankfully in the article, the doctor who was writing the case decided to put the woman on thyroid medication and all of her symptoms resolved. But to me, it was just shocking that this could even be a question of whether to treat her, because all the medical literature shows that women, particularly women in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, who even have a little bit of low functioning thyroid, have much better health, much better brain health, much better heart health, much better bone health if we are treated. And this woman wasn't even a little bit under. She was glaringly over. So, there's this whole issue of kind of gray area. And to me, it's a little bit like saying, well, if the water isn't boiling, then let's just ignore the fact that it's simmering and about to boil, right? If it's 210 degrees Fahrenheit, technically it's not boiling till it's 212. So come back in 6 months and we'll treat you when it's actually boiling. But the problem is there's damage being done all that time. Not only is the damage you're not feeling well and you have no idea what's wrong with you, and now you're wondering if there's something mentally wrong with you or you can't do your life. But, there's actually physical damage happening to the thyroid if your antibodies are elevated. Then we look at things like Epstein-Barr virus. I mean, most medical doctors do not even know that there's a potential connection between EBV and Hashimoto's. And that's something we really need to be looking at. And then the third point is that just giving a medication to replace the thyroid hormone that your body isn't producing, it can certainly help. It can make you feel a lot better. But if your thyroid is not functioning because of Epstein-Barr virus, or if you're also having Epstein-Barr virus, even if you are fixing thyroid function, or if you're also having problems in your adrenal system, you're going to help the thyroid symptoms, but you're not going to feel better overall, and you're not going to know why. And then usually what happens is your doctor just keeps jacking up and jacking up and jacking up your thyroid medication, but you're never getting to the root of the problem. There's so many. I'm so glad you were able to find that information for yourself, and really that's what the book is about.
It was really me that was driving it, being driven by, physicians that were, like I said, that were taking the time to blog. And, and they would say, well, you really need to stay off Dr. Google. I'm like, these are your peers. These are MDs. This is not any fluffy, you know what I mean? So, when I finally went on thyroid hormone, it did relieve, I would say a healthy 75% of the symptoms. But, there was still that nagging. And then I honestly have to tell you, I was grateful to at least have an empathetic doctor, because once he drew the Epstein-Barr and he's standing there looking at the numbers, and when we went back for review, he said, Tiffany, I can honestly tell you, I don't know what to do with this. There's not a whole lot of conventional treatment. These heavy-duty antivirals can be sometimes bigger butt kickers than letting it ride out. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, okay, but there were quite a few natural things that, that helped me significantly. So I just, you are truly one of my absolute favorite mentor docs between herbalism and we just love you. Dana and I are so excited to have you today.
Well, we are, thank you. I'm in the same position you guys are in. I mean, I'm having to keep learning as I go along too, because like you said, for Epstein-Barr virus, the medical literature is not there. People can go on acyclovir, which helps with other viruses in the same family that EBV is in, so that's the herpes family. So it's chicken pox and shingles and Epstein-Barr virus. But there's really not a lot of evidence for acyclovir for EBV, so we're still extrapolating medically. And herbally, there's not a lot of money in people patenting herbal medicine. So the research, the research isn't always there either. So it's a lot of, putting the research together, and then the real women who are saying, look, I don't want to go on these big gun medications, and we know these herbs and supplements are generally safe if we're using them in these appropriate doses. Let's do it. And I'm learning just as much from my patients, I'm sure, and women like you as they're learning from me. And for me, the big piece was, I do have a Yale MD. The reason I went back to school was to be able to use that Yale MD as a conduit or, as an amplifier so that I could use a megaphone, not just to amplify my voice, but to amplify the voices of the women who are saying, we really need help, and this is what we've learned. And to be able to say, okay, as a Yale MD, I'm saying there's an importance for this so that other colleagues of mine are also saying, okay, we really need to listen. And unfortunately, medicine is an industry. There are wonderful people in that industry, but it's an industry. And it's often dollars and consumer demand that drive change. It's the fact that a lot of medical doctors got interested in integrative medicine had as much to do with the fact that patients were paying billions of dollars out of pocket to non-doctors to get their information, and the medical model said, hey, we better listen here because there's a lot of money funneling out, and we need to figure out what we're doing wrong. So, creating that revolution is also the women going into doctors' offices and being able to speak up, and doctors listening, and us as women really letting our providers know, look, we're going to find somebody else if you're not listening to me and not treating me with the respect of a peer, right? We should be peers. You know more about I may know more about the science of what's going on in your body, but you know more about your body than I do because it's your body.
Oh, absolutely. Amen to that. And I think I don't know if I mentioned on our show or not. Oh, no, I don't think this had happened or not. But I went to a well-renowned, doctor here in town because I was really excited to see a functional medicine doctor. And he basically told me that, adrenal fatigue was, kind of a myth. And, I almost just jumped out of my seat.
My goodness.
I think my husband had to sit on top of me to get me back down. And so, of course, there was that. And there is that, we all need to stick together and we need to, be a team and be advocates because you do find that people don't get it and they don't see it and they don't understand it. And, a lot of the doctors, of course, don't. And especially one of the things that Dr. Isabella Wentz mentioned, a couple of weeks ago was that you can get that with adrenal issues. You can get that sense of overwhelm really easy from just the simplest things. And I wanted to jump to that, if you don't mind, because that's one of the things that happens to me all the time. Why is overwhelm more than a feeling? Because wow, it really is kind of a big deal at my household. I feel really bad sometimes when I say to my husband, I can't go downstairs and get the load of laundry. I'm sorry. I mean, it's like the strangest little thing. And he looks at me, and I'm like, I promise I'm not crazy, So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I originally actually wanted to call the book Overcoming Overwhelm because I felt like that was the biggest symptom I was really seeing in women across the board. It's like overwhelm and feeling like they're living stuck in the on position. They can just never turn it off. And my publisher was so funny. He said, yeah, but overwhelmed people aren't going to buy a book on overwhelm because they're too overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't think that's true, but I think it's huge. I think there are a few things going on. So this idea that overwhelm is more than a feeling is something I talk about in the book. And that's because when we think of overwhelm, we think of the emotional aspect of I'm at the end of my rope. I can't handle it anymore. I just can't do one more thing. I just can't push any harder because we all have so much on our plates. But there's a lot of unseen, and that's very legitimate, and it's a big piece of what I talk about in the book, because there's also a lot of self-imposed overwhelm that we as women cling to, and we can talk about that if you want. But there's a lot of unseen overwhelm going on. If you think about what's going on in your gut, most of us have had 30 rounds of antibiotics by the time we're 30 years old. So 20 rounds by the time we're 18, and then another 10 rounds. And so our gut gets overwhelmed, and our microbiome gets overwhelmed, and it gets overwhelmed to the point where it can't do the work of elimination as well as it should, and it can't do the work of extracting nutrition from our food or protecting our gut lining so that we end up with a problem called leaky gut, which causes inflammation and has been associated with autoimmunity. Our immune systems get overwhelmed by the fact that we're running on overdrive and we're fatigued and we're living on either too much or too little cortisol. Our detoxification systems get overwhelmed by the over 80,000 chemicals circulating in our environment that we were never evolutionarily prepared to deal with. We spent millions of years evolving, and then all of a sudden in the last 60 years, there's 80,000 new chemicals to deal with. On top of the fact that so many of us are so busy that we're skipping meals, we're skimping on our vegetables, and our vegetables and fruits as well contain a whole array, not just of nutrients that our bodies need for detoxification, but what are called phytochemicals, very specific chemicals that help boost our detoxification systems so that we can keep up with those environmental chemicals that we're exposed to, and also the chemicals that our bodies are just naturally producing and trying to break down and eliminate. So what happens with all of that overwhelm is that the emotional all the way to the detoxification, every level of it, our brain perceives that as something going wrong. Danger, Will Robinson, and our brain... Our brain, do you have to be old enough to get that reference?
I totally got it.
I think so. Yeah, we get it. So that was from a TV show from the 1970s, if you guys who are listening don't know, called Lost in Space. and there was a robot that protected the geeky science kid, and the robot would say, did you say warning or danger, Will Robinson?
Danger, Will Robinson.
So your brain is like that surveillance system that's there to look out for you, and your brain picks up on danger both externally and internally. So any chronic inflammation, excess production of inflammatory response systems. And I'm sorry if there's noise in the background. I escaped my grandchildren by coming to a cafe thinking it would be quieter than my grandchildren in the background. So I apologize for any background noise. But, so what happens is this brain surveillance system turns on a natural protective defense system in your body. And that's also in your brain all the way extending down to your adrenals. So it starts in your brain in the hypothalamus, goes down to your pituitary, and ends up triggering your adrenal glands to produce higher levels of cortisol and adrenaline. And when you're under the influence of cortisol and adrenaline, initially you actually feel really stimulated and activated and ready to fight or run. It's a fight or flight response. Your brain gets really highly primed and alert and aware. All these really fabulous things happen in your body to protect you from danger. But when you are under the exposure of that stimulation all the time, you actually start to get overstimulated, irritated, and eventually exhausted. And when you're in that overstimulated place all the time, you can feel really overwhelmed. It just feels like too much is coming at you at once. And there's another thing that happens both with cortisol and the way we live our lives, and that's a phenomenon called willpower fatigue. When you are keeping it together all day long, you're showing up for your job, you're showing up for your kids, you're showing up for your parents, you're showing up for your best friend, you're kind of showing up for the rest of the world. The only place that your brain gives you permission, sort of unconsciously, to say, screw it, I'm not showing up, is guess where? For yourself. And on top of that, when you're exposed to cortisol too much day in and day out, and then when you cross over into the never land of now you have depleted your body's desire to produce all that cortisol, your body's trying to protect you from overproducing cortisol, because cortisol is called the wear and tear hormone. It's over time that those protective benefits backfire. You start to gain weight, you start to wear down your muscle, you start to wear down your bones. You also start to wear down your willpower. One of the things that happens from production of overproduction or chronic continual production of cortisol is that the frontal part of your brain, your frontal cortex, where your executive function is hanging out and doing its work, actually starts to get rewired so that you cannot use your willpower as well. So you want to go fold the laundry, or maybe not, but you should go fold the laundry. But your willpower is saying, you know what, I can't do this. And it's not that you're like a weak person who doesn't have good control of their willpower. It's that you literally, physiologically, can't get control of your willpower. Weirdly, when we think about Hashimoto's and we think about adrenal problems, I think as women we tend to think our bodies are failing us, or what's wrong with us, why does my body not work as well as her body, what's going on with me that I can't handle it. But really it's your body trying to protect you, and the way your body's trying to protect you is to say, yep, right, nope, we're not going to let you get up and do the laundry. In fact, we're not even going to let you get out of bed right now because you have to you have to rest. And that is not my grandchild, that is someone else's child. So, if you think about your car, right, we all have an empty line on our car. And a lot of us drive our car thinking, you know what, I know I have a reserve tank, so I can still go another 30 miles. So, yeah, I'll get gas in a little while. But we actually do know that at some point we have to put gas in the car because the car will actually stop working. It will not turn on, or it will just stop in the middle of the road. So we know to put, we may let it get below empty, but we know to not let it get too far above empty because none of us wants to be sitting by the side of the road waiting for a tow truck. But we do not do the same thing with our body. We know when we're hitting the empty line. We know, we feel it. We know when we've said yes to something we should say no to. We know when we've been pushing it too hard for too long, but we just keep doing it because unlike our car, our bodies can go for a really long time, and then we are by the side of the road waiting for AAA to, haul us out of bed when it's
Crash.
too late. So exactly, we crash. And for some women, I would actually say for most women in my practice who come in with either what they call adrenal fatigue, what we commonly call adrenal fatigue, or Hashimoto's, or another autoimmune condition, I would say probably 8 or 9 out of 10, most of them have had a period of months or even a couple of years where they were under extreme stress and they were pushing past it, and then they got sick. So even women who are coming in with EBV or other triggers, it was often a long history of something. Not always. I mean, sometimes those infections do come out of nowhere, or sometimes, we have toxin exposure from the environment that we didn't know was going on, and we actually did feel okay. But that's not the usual story I hear.
I know, right? We both did that at the same time.
And I just know that you're sitting over there cringing every time those people in the background are making noise. It's totally fine.
I know,
Don't worry about
sorry.
it. It's no problem.
We appreciate you running around trying to find quiet so very much.
But, really quick before we get into, I know Tiffany has a couple of really good questions she wants to get to. I want to bring in a favorite of ours who's calling in to say a special hello for us. So let me do that really quick. Hello?
Hi. How are you all?
Hi. Mary Showman.
We still know that voice.
Yes, we do.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm so excited. Mary, I've wanted to connect with you and meet with you forever, so hello.
Well, I had to call in because I am one of your biggest fans. I don't know if you have you have a fangirl club, but Dana and Tiffany and I.
I am so honored. Thank you.
We are the charter
members.
Yeah.
So I wanted to first of all congratulate Tiffany and Dana on 2 years, because aren't we around the anniversary or even right
are.
now, Dana?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm so excited. This show has always been an amazing resource for the patient community and an opportunity to get some of the top minds like Dr. Romm to be able to share their wealth of information. So congratulations on 2 years, and congratulations on the new book, Dr. Romm. I can't wait to read it, and I want to review it and be able to get the word out to people, because this sounds like really valuable information. So I wanted to say those two things. And I actually did have a question today, if I could, for Dr. Romm.
Sure.
And I'm kind of going public right now. Dana knows the news, but I haven't let my reader community know yet. Just a few weeks ago, I was, really shockingly diagnosed with type 1 late onset diabetes. And I'm 55 years old. I have a history of Hashimoto's disease, and it's been well controlled for years. And out of nowhere, except that it was following a period of very intense stress. My son was very ill in the hospital, and I was concerned that he might not even make it. And I spent a month on a couch sleeping in the hospital with him. A couple days after he got out of the hospital, all of a sudden I wasn't feeling good, went into the urgent care, and I was in diabetic ketoacidosis. And subsequent to this, I've gotten many different opinions, and I'm interested in yours, because the conventional endocrinologist said, well, it just happens occasionally with the autoimmune disease that we see the late onset type 1 show up in somebody that has an autoimmune history. But I've also talked with a more holistic nutritionist who said that she thinks, because I do have Epstein-Barr virus in my system and it flares up periodically, she thinks that the stress allowed my body to have a viral attack on my pancreas, and that if I clear the viruses out, I may be able to go into a remission from the type 1 diabetes. So I wanted to see if you had any thoughts about the mechanisms that would bring on such a rapid onset of another autoimmune disease in someone who already has a pre-existing autoimmune disease, and if you think there's any merit to the theory that the viral attack might be the cause and might actually be a resolvable process for me.
Wow. First of all, I'm so sorry your son was so sick, and I'm glad he is well. And as I think those of us who are moms know, there's that expression, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And I think when something is going on with our children, at that magnitude, the stress on our body, I think, is so much more than we even realize. And then you're in the hospital eating hospital food and stressed and not sleeping. So I would say your endocrinologist is correct, and the nutritionist or functional practitioner you saw is correct. And I'm glad you bring up this point, although I'm not glad you had to bring it up because of personal reasons. I get a lot of people writing to me and saying, is your book relevant for me? I had Graves and I had my thyroid removed, or I had complete thyroid ablation. Is it still relevant? And I think your story is so important, because even when the thyroid is treated, if we're just treating with thyroid hormone replacement and not really getting to the root causes, those same root causes can take root anywhere in your body. And there's a strong association between women who have Hashimoto's later developing another autoimmune disease. So it's very, very common, actually. And late onset type 1 diabetes is increasingly common in our society in general, and certainly you were more at risk. And true also, so I would say it's all true, and related. Epstein-Barr virus is like herpes virus, it's in that same family, is activated under periods of stress, and you were under an extreme period of stress. And yes, it has been associated with a number of autoimmune conditions. So I would not forego appropriate insulin and medication treatment while you are working on the EBV and getting your immune system back in order, because you definitely don't want to go into ketoacidosis again or cause further damage. And,
right.
Like with thyroid hormone, some women are able to reverse the underlying cause and go off of it completely. Some women, once they have the damage, need to stay on thyroid replacement. And similarly, sometimes once you have the damage to the pancreas, you do need to stay on some insulin replacement and support. But there are those women, I'm sure you've seen this in your work, who actually do reverse autoimmune or put it fully into remission where they don't need that. So I would say don't give up on that being a definite possibility that the EBV was a trigger. Follow the conventional appropriate treatment so you're not putting yourself at risk or causing damage, and then give it time, because it can take, just like with reversing thyroid antibodies, it can take months or a year or more to get that pancreas happy and healthy and feeling like it can do its work again.
Great. Well, thank you so much, because that confirms sort of where I've come to in my thinking about this, in that, yes, of course, just like anyone, if your thyroid is really shut down, or in my case, the pancreas is really struggling to do its job, I do need to protect myself by bringing in some outside hormone, in my case, the insulin. But I am going at it full throttle from the other direction as well, looking at those underlying causes and trying to see if I can get at that and clear it out and potentially get my immune system back on track. So I'll keep everybody posted on the progress, because I'm hoping that I'm going to be a turnaround and that I may be able to say, hey, look, I beat type 1 diabetes. That would be pretty exciting.
It would be amazing.
Really wonderful.
It's happened. I hope that you're able to really kind of, be patient with yourself. It sounds like you've been through a hell of a lot recently.
My goodness, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's been a tough situation, but my son's doing better, and I am starting to get the hang of this type 1 diabetes process and keeping my blood sugar really controlled and eating very well, and not, by the way, not following the American Diabetes Association's eating guidelines.
No, please don't.
Oh, my goodness. I know.
That I can
it's terrible.
But
that part I can
case,
speak to.
Yes. Well, I want to let you guys get back to the conversation, and I just, again, wanted to say congrats to Dana and Tiffany and to you, Dr. Romm, on the new book. And this has been a great show, and I'm going to keep listening. So I hope you have a great rest of the show, and thanks again. It's been really valuable to hear all this information.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even imagine what she has been through. I'm so
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I know. Woo, that was fun. Interesting. I love that.
Well,
I
and I think it takes an incredible amount of courage, too. I think that for those of us who people look up to as, we've got the answers for solving these problems, it takes so much courage to admit and be public about when something isn't going well. And I think it's so powerful, and I also think it's so important. I know people in the health and wellness space, they're writing blogs about their, how to get better sleep while they're taking Xanax for their sleep problems, or, you know what I mean? And that lack of authenticity, I think, is so unfair to folks who really want to make a change, because it sets unrealistic, magical expectations instead of being real women in real bodies with real struggles, looking for real solutions. I really honor Mary for being public about that too.
I know. Okay, so back to us really quick. Tiffany, you had some things you wanted to ask her about. Why don't we jump right back in where we were?
Oh, I did. Okay, so when you were explaining, it brought me back to your hungry ghost story. I've got my own hungry ghost that sort of drives this adrenal fatigue, which I drive in myself. Just that constant insecurity of finances and whatever, that kind of drives me into the ground. And I know that we've talked about hungry ghosts. So what is a hungry ghost? And about your own hungry ghost. We would love to hear your story and how you came up with that.
So it kind of fell out of my mouth one day, and I didn't actually know it was a real term. I mean, I must have heard it somewhere because it was clearly circulating in my psyche, but I was in my office, in my medical practice, seeing this incredible woman, and I write about her in the book, Marnie, and she was in her late 50s, early 60s at the time. I think she was about 58 at the time, maybe 61. I'm forgetting right at the minute. But she was a first-generation born to parents who had escaped atrocities in Europe and had to start over here. She was the oldest of a bunch of kids and spent her entire childhood and then into her entire adult life, like as long as she could remember, with this attitude, I am never going to be poor, and I am going to do everything it takes to get out of poverty. She changed her accent. She had kind of a New Yorkish accent. She worked really hard, put herself through school so she could go to college, worked 2 jobs and was going to college, on and on and on, really, really pushing. And by the time I saw her, I mean, the woman had a body like Madonna because she was working out 2 hours a day with a personal trainer 6 days a week, running a successful business, has grown children, was flying all over the country to take care of her grandkids whenever her kids needed her, healthy, successful, long-term marriage, and just pushing herself all the time, truly believing that if she ever stopped, everything would fall apart. Like she'd be back in poverty. Like this was a very real negative fantasy for her that this would happen if she stopped. And I was in my office with her, and I looked at her, and I said, I feel like you're feeding these hungry ghosts that you think are chasing you, but they're not actually chasing you anymore.
Wow.
You're safe. And she's like, She just kind of stopped and looked at me, and tears came in her eyes. I said, I think you need permission to pause. And this was maybe about 5 years ago. And I saw her, last time I saw her was about maybe 6-8 months ago, and she said, that was like kind of a real talking to. That was sort of a can of whoop ass, Aviva, that you handed me there. Mm-hmm. And she said, I really needed to listen to it, and I did, and she changed her life. And I later on that night went home, and I was like, where did that come from? And it turns out that hungry ghosts is a Buddhist term for inner ghosts that we feel are chasing us, but no matter how much we feed them, they're never satisfied. And what I found in my patient Marnie, she had Hashimoto's. She actually had trouble gaining weight. So many people have trouble losing weight, but she had trouble gaining weight and holding on to weight. She had her cortisol was completely dysregulated. She had sleep problems, a lot of issues, digestive problems. When I got home and I saw that term about hungry ghosts, it actually is also used for addiction. It's a term that's used in kind of the alternative addiction world to describe these things that are chasing us, or these things that we think we're chasing us, and we keep feeding them but can never be satisfied. And that night was a real wake-up call for me, because I thought, you know what? I'm doing the exact same thing. I just haven't had to pay the price with symptoms yet. So it was like a cautionary tale for me. So my backstory in a nutshell is that I grew up in very low-income housing in New York City, a single mom. And so for me, my ability to get out of my home, which I moved out of my house at 15. I was accepted to college at 14 years old. And it was by being smart and knowing how to read what adults wanted and being able to sort of give them that intellectually. So for me, I was in a survival pattern of always using achievement and accomplishment to get safe and keep me safe. And so for me, the way it was manifesting in my life is I was always saying yes to more and more things, always feeling like I had to do more, be more, achieve more, be the best at everything I did. And I truly had that same kind of fantasy that if I were to stop and just read a book or watch a movie or watch a TV show, that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing and that it was all going to fall apart. And so I had to really look at my own life and walk my own talk and learn to hit my own pause button. And when I did that, it was like all this you ever been in an electrical storm and all the power goes out in your house and you didn't really realize how noisy your refrigerator was and the electricity was until it's totally quiet?
Yeah,
and
totally.
It was like once I hit that pause button for myself, I realized that what I thought was drive and ambition was actually anxiety, and that was creating discontent and unrest. And it was causing me to be in overwhelm all the time. And I was staying up too late to finish projects that I needed to do. I was working all weekend to, finish this next talk. I mean, it was ridiculous. I was doing too much, and I didn't have to anymore, right? I had already achieved that level of both inner accomplishment and security in my world, but like my patient Marnie, was never stopping. And I realized that for me, I was still healthy, but I was young enough to sort of still be living on that resilience that we all have, but I didn't want it to burn out. So I really learned at that point to hit the pause button. But, there are so many things in the world, like those 80,000 chemicals that I talked about in our environment. I mean, we have some control over those, right? We can eat more organic, healthier choices. We can use more natural cosmetics. But the environment's the environment. We can't necessarily not be exposed to air pollution, right? We can just do our best. But we can actually turn down the internal pollution, if you will, that we're causing ourselves, like our own thought pollution, our own I'm never doing enough, I'm not good enough, I have to please everybody, all these ways that we drive ourselves into overwhelm that we can start to not do anymore and let ourselves have a bit of a reset so that we have a little bit more capacity to handle the things that we have less control over.
It's interesting that you bring all of this up and all the, hungry ghost and things. And I think sometimes your body's smarter than we give it credit for, because I did like a year or two of pause when I got to Costa Rica. I was so go, and I had so much stress with my son. And I needed to just, like stare out into the abyss for a year or two even, really. And people would say, why aren't you doing anything and why aren't you busy? And I never really had any good excuses, and I shouldn't have had to have any. That whole importance of everybody's supposed to be being busy here in the States that we have this kind of unsaid rule, which I absolutely hate. They don't have that in Costa Rica. It was all Pura Vida. And I was just in this zombie zone. And I think my body was just like, okay, this is it. This is your pause. You're doing it, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, like when we look at some of the statistics, it's actually kind of scary. I mean, the number of accidents or mistakes that people make in high-stakes jobs just because we're not hitting the pause button. I mean, in some ways, it's really quite devastating. And when we look at the statistics on work and productivity, interestingly, hitting the pause button makes us better at everything we do. But you're so right. I mean, what is valued in this culture is not health. It's accomplishment and your status and your achievement and your car and your money and where your kids are going to school. And it's I think it's driving a lot of people into the ground.
That's a hungry ghost in of itself.
Yes,
it is. Societal hungry ghost, That is so true. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. The pause button and how the circadian rhythm and the circadian reset apply to that and the adrenal and the thyroid.
Yeah, so it's a really beautiful kind of orchestrated system. If you think about us as human beings, we have evolved on the planet over millions of years. And our core hardwiring, if you will, the way our brain and body, not that they're separated, but the way our cells all work in harmony, is that organs in our brain are wired, they are programmed to be in sync with 24-hour rhythms, which is the rhythm of the cycle of the planet rotating around the sun. And so there's light and there's dark. And our bodies are set to do certain functions in the light period and do other functions in the dark period of the day and night. But we've kind of overridden those natural cycles with our 24/7 exposure to blue light, for example. We're on our computers the minute we are texting, the minute we wake up in the morning, till the minute we go to bed at night, which is often too late. We're not letting basic rhythms still dictate how our body's processes are working. Cortisol, interestingly, is the hormonal harmonizer that connects the hypothalamus, which is where, and the pituitary basically, which is where your body's awareness of that 24-hour rhythm primitively resides, with every single cell in your body, except your red blood cells. Every other cell in your body is waiting for cortisol signals to know what time of day it is and what it should be doing. Cortisol is naturally supposed to be high in the morning, and then it starts to decrease throughout the evening to where it's lowest around a couple of hours after we've gone to bed, at which time it picks back up again. When cortisol is elevated, melatonin is low. When cortisol goes down, melatonin goes up. Cortisol actually suppresses melatonin. Melatonin we think of as for sleep, but melatonin is really the hormone that is also, or neurotransmitter, that's responsible for detoxification. So it's detoxifying in your brain, it's detoxifying in your body. So when we're suppressing melatonin by having cortisol that's jacked up because we're go, 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 go all day, we're actually preventing our body from doing its normal detoxification, which is really significant if you think about your brain health and your cellular health. But cortisol is also dictating, for example, Mary brought up her pancreas. Cortisol dictates when and how much insulin your pancreas is releasing. Cortisol dictates various different cells in the immune system. So certain cells in your immune system are more active during the day. Other cells in your immune system are more active at night. And cortisol is telling those cells which ones should be active at different times of day. So, the beat goes on with cortisol. And when cortisol is disrupted, every other aspect, digestion, immunity, your hormonal system, your nervous system, become out of sync with that master gland in the brain that's in sync with the rest of what's going on in the natural world. So one of the most important and simplest in many ways, but in other ways hardest, because we're also keyed into this 24/7 lifestyle, is to actually sort of become a social resistor to saying I'm going to give my health and my life over to the altar of the 24/7 accomplishment-oriented way that our world works, and say, you know what, I have a right to get up at a reasonable hour and start my day at a healthy pace. I have a right to take a few breaks during the day. We have these cycles that happen every 90 to 120 minutes where the parasympathetic nervous system tries to kick back up. That rest and digest and detox part of our body is starting to get active. And to eat rhythmically and regularly. We know that Americans are now eating one meal out of every 5 days in their car behind the dashboard. And then, how many meals a week are we eating?
Oh my goodness.
At our keyboard, right? So we're basically eating a keyboard dashboard diet. And so how do we sort of say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm a human being. I have a right to some normal cycles in my life. I have a right to rest as much as I have a right to be productive. And that is just starting to get in harmony with those circadian rhythms. It's really creating some rhythmicity, again, reclaiming rhythmicity to life. And that in itself can truly and literally reset so much of the other dysfunction in our body.
Oh, my goodness. I got to ask you, for the listeners, Aviva, what does that do to digestion and the human body, this fast food mentality? It doesn't even mean you have to go through a drive-through. Just, even if you brought a healthy sandwich with you or a healthy whatever and you eat it like that, what does that do to us?
I mean, there's so many layers, right? We know, for example, that even just a week of having artificial sweeteners can affect thyroid function. We know that artificial sweeteners can cause leaky gut. We know that sugar can tamp down your immune response. I mean, sort of the list goes on of all the ways that fast food affects our health on every level. We know that it can affect our brain wiring and affect our moods. So, it's really just getting back to basics with food. I love what Michael Pollan said, eat real food, mostly plants, and not too much. It's such a core tenet of just getting, I think it is not to romanticize natural living or romanticize, the days of yore, but to reclaim some rhythm in our food, reclaim eating healthy, reclaim cooking more of our food in our kitchen and taking it with us in thermoses and lunchbox and paper bags. Just going back to that simplicity, it's really about telling your brain, which tells your entire adrenal thyroid system, that you're safe. It's okay. There's time to breathe. There's room here to breathe. There's enough food so you don't have to go into famine mode and start holding on to every calorie and turn down metabolism. So just getting a little bit more simpler can rewire everything.
Speaking of which, we just did a hive mind. You led me perfectly right into the next scenario, which we see so frequently. What about the women that are eating healthy, but they're not eating enough? Like they're holding on to some weight, some thyroid adrenal weight, and so they're not eating enough. They're not eating enough during the day. They're eating healthy.
Yeah.
They're eating that beautiful paradigm, but they're not eating enough. What does that do to the adrenals?
Birds, right?
Yeah,
So
yep, exactly. What does that do to the adrenals?
Yeah, not eating enough and over-exercising both have a similar impact on the adrenals. They tell your brain that something's not right. And your brain requires, first of all, a certain amount of energy to function. And so when your brain is not getting that energy, it really does send out a red alert. Or as Pedram Shojai said it to me, it puts your brain into DEFCON 3, right, Aviva? And I was like, that's exactly right. You go into DEFCON 3. And your brain then tells your adrenals to start pumping out cortisol. One of the things that cortisol does is it causes you to pack on weight. Another thing that happens when you're not getting enough energy or when you're burning too much energy or you're over-exercising is that one of the sort of dangers that we're primitively hardwired to be very responsive to is famine. So when we're not getting enough nutrition, we're not getting enough calories, the brain actually says, okay, well, maybe it's a famine. We better turn down metabolism because there might not be enough energy coming in the near future, and we better store everything that she is getting in case there's not enough energy in the future. And the way that your body does that is, again, you produce more cortisol. Cortisol then tells your thyroid gland, hey, we might have an energy problem. Your thyroid gland is like your body's thermostat. And what do we do in an energy crisis? We turn down the thermostat. So we're keeping it at 66 or 67 instead of 72. And so your body turns down its metabolism. That's one of the ways that you start to pack on weight because your body is actually trying to protect you from a danger that it perceives. So one of the things that I always do in my practice, and I talk a lot about in the book, is maintaining healthy blood sugar. We have to maintain enough steady blood sugar and enough calories. And I'm seeing so many people doing intermittent fasting, ketogenic diets, skipping meals, low carb. And, that may work for a very short period of time, like a few weeks to help expunge inflammation. But overall, and especially for women, it does tend to backfire, actually. And I see it all the time. I see women who come into my practice and they say, look, I've seen 3 or 4 doctors. I've shown my doctors what I'm eating. And when you look at their food journal, they're barely eating anything, right? They're having like, you know, a smoothie for breakfast, a salad with maybe a little bit of salmon or some sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds for lunch, and maybe some greens and a piece of salmon or chicken for dinner, or they're, you know, or a vegetarian version of that, but they're really not eating much. And they tell me that doctor after doctor after doctor or nutritionist after nutritionist basically kind of sort of accuse them of lying and saying, well, you're probably eating more than you're admitting or you're aware of. But that's actually not the case. They're not getting enough energy for their body to feel safe burning energy. And so they're really, I see this all the time. They're not lying about their diet. They're just not getting enough fat and enough calories for the body to actually burn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whew. I mean, there's so many people that it's terrible, but I'm sitting here thinking of all these people who this applies to. I'm thinking, oh, I should just send this show right over to them, but that doesn't sound very nice. So, really quick, we have another caller. This is special to your show, so I want to tap this person in really quick. Hello?
Hello, Dana. It's Stacy Robbins.
Hi, Stacy. You're on with Dr. Aviva, Romm, and Tiffany and me.
Hello. Aviva. Hello, beautiful.
Hi.
Congratulations on your new book and everything amazing that you're doing in the adrenal and thyroid and healing world. You are a rock star.
Oh, thank you.
And happy anniversary to you guys at Thyroid Nation. Congratulations on this auspicious occasion.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you, Stacy.
We talk about you all the time, so we're thrilled to have you call in. We refer to your show. It was such a great show. We had our first Flower Field moment we've now coined that as our Flower Field moment. We've had 3 or 4 with Aviva already. I just got used to saying it. But it's time to have you back on the show, Stace. We're going to have you back on the show, but we thank you for all you do for the world, and thank you for our Flower Field moments, because we wouldn't have them without you.
Yes. Thank you so much. You guys are so beautiful. Thank you for including me. Thank you for sharing my book and my work with the world, and for always making a warm space for me, and allowing others to know that that mind-body-spirit connection is so important in the healing game, and the internal conversation, how important that is with our thyroid health and our inner healing. So thanks for giving that voice a platform. I so appreciate it. And I sprayed my little Flower Fields moment that you created for me in the car right before I came on the call. So you were with me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stacey's the ultimate adrenal healing, mind-body connection person. Even your writing is very soothing and calming, and I love it. Yeah.
Well, and
Thank
funny.
you so much.
And we all need to laugh. So I mean, Stacey's going through some serious stuff right now, but she even finds a way to make things funny. And I laugh at her horribleness sometimes because of the way she's right. But laughing is good, so I love it.
Humor is it. It's so funny. I had 3 months. I mean, the irony of this book, it's kind of a long story, but the irony of this book on adrenals is that I had to write it start to finish in 3 months, right? So you guys get the irony there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so my big sort of like way that I would blow off steam at the end of the day would be to turn on just total like stand-up comedy and laugh my butt off.
I love it.
I know. I remember when Cheryl Richardson was writing about her book on extreme self-care. She was going through massive turmoil in her home and in her family life, and she wrote about that in the foreword, which I so appreciated, the honesty that often. Yeah, right. And I remember one of my publishers for my one of my first books. It was all about. It was called God Loves Me, I think. Stories from Hell, Heaven, and the Other Side of Texas, and it was all about my journey to finding peace. And I remember that my editor said to me, I said, why am I in such upset? Why is everything so hard right now when I'm writing about a book about peace? He said, because you're not a journalist. You are sharing your story. And he said, and the way for you to write authentically from that place is to be in that place again. So he called it the writer's sacrifice, Aviva, which I love, and I know you can appreciate. And it was just like when you have to walk someone else through their healing, it's like you suspend your state of healing and go back into that hard place so that you can walk them through authentically with compassion in our writing and so on and so forth. So
there's also this great expression that I heard somewhere, which is new level, new devil. Have you ever heard that? And it's like just when you think you know something, the universe is like, okay, well, we're going to see how well you really know that. We're going to keep you a little humble on this.
Yes. Up in the ante for sure, yeah. How funny.
Well, I'm writing a book right now called An Unconventional Life, and I'm living a very unconventional life. And I said to my husband, I said, the next book I'm writing is I have a skinny ass and a lot of money in my bank account, because I figure I'm going to live that.
I saw a Christmas card. I was out getting a bottle of wine, going to someone's house, and at the store they had all these cards. It was right around Christmas time, and it said, I actually took a picture of it. It's so funny. It was, "Dear Santa, can you please read my note correctly this time? This year I want a fat bank account and a skinny ass, not the other way around." It was like,
totally.
So funny.
I'm in.
I loved it.
I'm in. Well, guys, thank you so much for including me in this moment, celebrating you, Thyroid Nation, celebrating all the work that you've done, Dana and Tiffany, and celebrating you, Aviva, and your new great work in the world. So thanks for including me. I am on a walkthrough for a new place we're moving into, so I'm going to jet. But thank you for letting me share a few moments with you guys.
Oh, thank you for calling in, Stacy.
Thank you. Flower-filled moments. We love you.
Happy moving.
Love you too. Bye, guys. Happy day. Bye.
Oh my goodness, she's going through so much right now.
Isn't
my
she?
goodness. We get to be in the presence of the most incredible women in our work now. It's like the women who are real, who have been through it, who are living it, who are creating, whole new ways of working and being. It's so powerful.
It is, and
moving
I reached
mountains.
We are moving mountains.
Exactly. I wanted to say to Mary, I was so impressed with the article that was in the Wall Street Journal maybe about a year ago. Did you guys? I don't think you guys were quoted in it, but Mary was, and it was about how doctors need to sit up and listen to women more. It was so powerful. I was like, wow. I mean, these are women who are what I call citizen scientists, right? And I was before I was a physician. I was a home birth midwife, and I was a citizen scientist having to figure out the information for ourselves that we weren't getting from the medical model.
Dana and I were PMing during it with Mary and you, and we were saying just, how awesome is this? The ultimate patient advocate. I mean, Mary is a powerhouse. She is just, she is just a woman to reckon with. I mean, she's amazing. We've watched her for so long, and having her talking to literally one of our favorite, I model the perfect physician after you.
Right.
Listen, are they really interested? I mean, do they still learn? I mean, what I love the most about you is that you said it a couple times, reading the journals, still need to be on top of it, constantly learning, right? How many physicians believe they're done? I'm done learning. I have all the answers. And so they can't hear their patients, and you're completely opposite. You're like, tell me what's going on, what's working, what's not. So here we had Mary talking with Aviva Romm. It was just the ultimate moment for Dana and I on Thyroid Nation. It was just
so cool.
Ultimate flower field moment.
I love
Truly.
those moments where it's like, wait, Mary knows who I am? I'm like, really? I love that. It's like, oh.
I mean, it was awesome, and to both be so incredibly human in the moment. Just we had a question. Let me see if I can go back and find it. But we had a question on the posting of the show from Alana, and I cannot say her last name, but she said she's listening to the show. She loves it. Say it again, Cavalia.
Uh-huh.
That's a beautiful name. Anyways, she said, I'm also really interested, she's loving listening to you, Aviva. I'm also really interested in the connection between overachievers and Hashimoto's. I've noticed that so many Hashi sufferers are also overachievers.
Yeah, and I think I would be the last one to encourage women not to be what we call overachievers. I mean, there's a power in having really high standards and wanting to achieve a lot and kick butt in the world. And there's a lot that needs to be done in the world, and I think women are uniquely capable of making transformation in the world. So I would suggest, yes, one, there's a connection, and I talk about that in the book. In fact, I had like another 80 pages in the book. There's a publisher set. I mean, talking about overachieving, I had to send in a 70,000-word manuscript, and I sent in a 130,000-word manuscript just to give you.
Oh, my.
So there was a lot to say, but what ended up coming out was some of the stuff on overachieving, which is why I did that 10-day adrenal reset, and I've got a journal that, that people can get to. But the point being that how do we go from having drive, which is our internal inspiration and motivation, to being driven? And when I'm talking about being driven, I'm talking about external factors or external factors that we have internalized. So external factors may be things like, you know what, all my friends have a BMW, so I shouldn't be driving this RAV4. Or, I have a certain job, so I have to get Jimmy Choo's. I can't wear my, Clarks or whatever. I'm just making all this up. So there's these things that we perceive as external that we succumb to. And then there's the voices of our mothers and our fathers or whoever it was in our life that always made us feel like we weren't enough or needed to be enough. Or like Marnie, or, like my story, real life factors that led to what at once were survival patterns that really were helpful, but that at some point become maladaptive. They're driving us, but they don't need to anymore. So what I find is, how can we be really honest with ourselves and know where, and I think for most of us, we actually feel it physically, or we have mental symptoms. We get anxious or depressed or overwhelmed, or we're using words like I'm overwhelmed or I can't take it anymore. Or we get physical symptoms. We get digestive problems or headaches or, we get sick more often, or you get that herpes outbreak or that yeast infection or urinary tract infection, whatever it is that your body does when you've gone from healthy stress into distress. And so it's a matter of learning to really deeply start to be in our truth and be comfortable with that and knowing, yes, I want to be the head of my field or the head of my corporation, or I want to make XYZ dollars a year because that's what I want to do. And then how can you do that without it being driven by those hungry ghosts? And that's the difference. It's healthy stress versus distress. And learning to listen to when you've crossed over, before you cross over. In the book, I call it the U zone. But before you cross over into distress, to learn to recognize when you're allowed to say no and what your patterns are. I talk in the book about the good girl pattern, the fear of missing out pattern, or the perfectionist pattern, which is kind of that overachiever pattern. And not getting rid of the pattern completely, but finding the gift in it and then getting rid of the part that's harming you and the reasons that you're letting that part harm you. That's where I'm at with it. And definitely, I think that women who take on too much are often the women who pay for it with health. So I'm not saying we shouldn't take on a lot, but a lot is different than too much.
Even the word, I'm looking at the word overachiever, and that word in and of itself is very negative verbiage.
Right.
I never really thought about that until I was listening to you and looking at the word at the same time. It was like, wow, that's very negative self-talk.
It is. And, I, for a long time, especially when I was in the more kind of like hippie crunchy world as a hippie home birth herbal midwife, I found that there were actually a lot of women who were very critical of, for example, my desire to become a medical doctor. And I have felt many times in my life labeled as an overachiever and internalized that as a negative thing. And, I think as women, being a high achiever is a really powerful thing. If you're a stay-at-home mom and you like doing things at home, like cooking your family's food or making your kids' clothes or whatever it is, however that appears for you, doing things with excellence is beautiful and powerful. and being really good at what we do and having high aspirations and big dreams is really profound. And I think that having big dreams is beautiful, but just understanding where those dreams come from and making sure that they're your own inner desire, not something that you're doing because of some hungry ghost that is sort of chasing you.
I just love the things that you point out. The hungry ghost has stuck with me since the very first show with you.
Yep.
The hungry ghosts that are chasing us, these manufactured, just very interesting.
And I just want to keep you on the phone, so I just want to start talking about anything just to keep you on the phone. But we will let you go. But I wanted to mention that. We can do it again. Yes, we can, and we keep doing it every 6 months. We'll just be happy.
Yeah.
But Dr. Aviva Romm has some really cool prizes that she's going to offer to our listeners today, and I'm gonna ask her to send me an email with some numbers, just some random numbers, and I'm gonna go through all the different groups of people who've posted comments and count down the number of what number you are on the comment list, and if you match up, I'm gonna get your address and send you these awesome things that she's offered today. I know she's going to send a signed copy of her amazing new book, The Adrenal Thyroid Revolution. And I think my husband put it wrong on the meme. Whoopsie. And
no, it's okay.
Of course, my husband, he's going to shoot me because I proofed it too. So anyway, and then I think there's a copy of your Replenished Journal and your Replenished Kitchen Cookbook, which is really cool. So I will... For everybody who's listening live, if you'll comment on the different places that I posted this, I will get you your free copy, and I will let you know who the winners are.
Awesome. Do I get to enter? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I have your book.
You already have the book.
You guys are so
cute. The goal is to meet you in person and to get my copy signed because I'm super excited.
Let's do it. Let's figure out how to make that happen. There's got to be a conference or someplace we're all going to be. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank your husband. He was fantastic in messaging with me back and forth. And thank you for all that you do. We just really, really love you.
Well, and taking the time to be with us.
Happy
Thank you so much. Thank you. We need to do, so I would love to do a midwifing, prepare your body with thyroid issues and adrenal issues before you get pregnant. That's the show. That's like a dream show for me.
Totally do that. Yeah.
Because that's a huge thing, having 4 kids through the Hashimoto's, and I just think that is such an important. It's just such an important facet of Hashimoto's and autoimmunity, and even adrenal fatigue, right? I mean, sometimes we do the body does sneak in and allow you to get pregnant, and the goal is to be healthy before that ever happens. So that's
Absolutely.
my dream show.
And there are some really specific
that's my dream show.
issues around thyroid that are so worth talking about for pregnant women and new mamas that really can have an impact. So let's definitely do that.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Thank you so much for everything you do and for being you and for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you.
We love you. Thank you so much.
Oh, love you too. Bye, guys.
Have a fun day with your grandkids.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. She's my favorite.
You say that every time.
I do. I feel so incredibly blessed to have been able to interview these physicians to give us the opportunity of what's available. Do you know what I'm saying? Like these, I think there's so many patients that are so disheartened that just believe with these doctors that are, no bedside manner and just not willing to understand the fact that we don't need an antidepressant. We need to heal and they need to help. So when you talk with doctors like Aviva, it makes you realize they're there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they're out there. There are physicians who will actually care about the fact that you don't feel well and not be willing to just dole you out some medications that at times can make you worse. So I absolutely love her. I do.
Can't you just see her as one of those doctors a long time ago that made house calls, the kind that you want to come to your house, the kind that totally cares about you, sits on the side of your bed and looks in your eyes
the
and
names of your kids.
Yeah, and cares about you. That's who she was in her former life. She was one of those doctors who went around and took care of people. Really, she feels that way. Just talking to her,
She's just a real person, and I really think that that's the way the model of a physician was originally intended. And it's just they've gotten so far away from it. It's become so disjointed, conventional medicine, that they've lost a lot of their power. It's very sad. I'm hoping that it will turn around in the future, and that doctors like Aviva will model the physician of the future.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
That's what I dream about. Talk about a nerd.
Heading that way.
You
got Aviva doing her nerdy things, and Dr. Brogan on Saturdays diving into PubMed, and Tiffany dreaming of the doctors of the future. Are they handsome and well built?
It's a powerful position. I mean, the intention of a physician to help someone be able to heal is a very powerful position when it's done properly. I mean, you can hear that in her voice and in her books and in her work and in her blogging, and you can hear that. So she is my model doctor. She is my model physician. The education. She also understands the natural things, the preventative, when things don't necessarily need to be used, and you can use something herbally a little bit more naturally, less invasive on the body, more gentle. I mean, that to me that's the ultimate physician. She is my favorite.
We've had several of those doctors. We're really lucky to get to talk to them. We have. I mean, of course, she's up there. Absolutely. I'm just saying, looking back, it's our 2-year anniversary. So thinking about all the wonderful guests we've had, there's several doctors I want to clone. And we'll just,
Dr. Holtorf.
We'll just give them really nice cars, and we'll just put them in the car and send them around people's houses. Yes.
Oh my gosh,
Dr.
there's
Brighton.
so many. Jill Carnahan. By the way, we wanted to mention that name for Mary Showman for reversing type 1 diabetes. Jill Carnahan, who is an MD, she actually did that. She mentioned that on our Thyroid Nation radio show. So another doc, Dr. Brighton, Dr. Holtorf. Oh my gosh, there's like so many. Dr. Susser.
He was so good. And Dr. Hotze. Oh, he was fantastic.
Dr. Hotze. Wait, I mean, I can't even think of them all. Dr. Robinson,
Dr.
Red. Oh my gosh, we could go on for days.
Dr. Alan Christensen just cracks me up, and him and his wife together. I mean, they're probably like their own comedy act. I mean, she is the most beautiful, hilarious woman I've ever seen. She has the most hilarious posts. Her name's Kieran Christensen, and he's just funny. I mean, I watched him. I was watching Thyroid Secret, and when he was on our show, he was funny. And so I could just see the both of them. Yeah, he does. He giggles. He giggles like we do.
Could you imagine?
Great.
He is. If we had him back, we would probably do nothing but laugh. Shame on us.
I know.
Well, that's a huge portion for you and I in therapy is laughter.
It is.
I think laughter is a critical component in being well and being able to chill and just take a load off. I mean, for me, when I'm laughing, that gut laugh where it's almost like nothing but air comes out. My kids do that all the time to me, I swear. But it's like it releases all kinds of endorphins. It has to, because I feel totally different, after you have that laugh, that belly laugh.
I know.
They're awesome.
Me and my daughter, we are so silly, and me and my daughter, we laugh all the time, and we'll be in the grocery store. We do it in the most inappropriate places, and we can't help it. And we were walking through Target the other day, and we were just being silly, and something
Don't
she
you
did.
Love that?
Oh my God! And we were laughing, and then we walk up, and there's Travis, and he's looking at us. He's like, "I could hear you guys over the whole store." Sorry.
I love it. I love it. Well, of course, you can find all things amazing, Dr. Aviva Romm, at www.avivaromm.com. She has a fabulous blog. And, of course, this amazing, amazing book, which I'm right in the middle of, so I'm super excited. I'm waiting to get to the recipe part because she includes that in there as well. But just what a great What a great show. And that exchange between Stacy and Dr. Romm and Mary and Dr. Romm, what a treat. Honestly, what a treat.
I know.
And I want to take a minute to thank you for everything that you do for Thyroid Nation Radio and all the time that you put in getting all these people to come on and chat with us. You are a priceless powerhouse of a woman, and I am just truly honored to be a part of this with you. So I want to thank you today.
Thank you, honey. That's sweet. I mean, it feels right. It feels natural, and it just feels good. And doing this makes me happy. So I love you. I love all the people we talk to. I feel like I know all of them. I love Isabella. I love Mary. I mean, Mary's. We chat all the time. Stacy. I mean, I just feel so blessed. I just recently connected with a fabulous woman who you guys will get to meet. Her name is Alana Cavalla. She is the one that asked the question that Dr. Romm.
That's her?
That's her.
Cool.
I know. She is, talk about powerhouse. She's, a force to be reckoned with. And we will be doing some yoga, thyroid things in the future. And, just the people that are put in front of my path because of all of this that I'm going through, I just feel really, really blessed. So thank you too. And I love you. And I love our skincare and thyroid line. I think it's fantastic. It smelled for you.
Healthy.
Everything was well thought out, and we aren't adding any kind of extra chemicals or things that you don't need, that you don't realize you're getting on a daily basis. All of this is stuff you can take every single day and not worry about it. We will elaborate that with that topic and some blog posts coming up because we really want to get our message out and why we created Thyroid Nation Essentials. But we did that with Tiffany because she's the guru, the essential oils guru. She hates when I say that, but she really is. So I feel very, 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 very lucky, and I'm very, very blessed. So thank you. And thank you to our listeners because that's who we do this for. We get on this show every week and talk to amazing people, and we love it. But really, we do this for you because we want to let everyone know. I mean, had I known, of course, all of this stuff or had a show that I could listen to specifically, I would be in a much different place right now. So as far as my health goes, I wouldn't have maybe met all of these cool people. But,
I remember the inception of the show. You wanted it to be two patients, two real lives, two patients. We're not professionals that really just chatted, and as patients, we're to talk to these amazing people and get information on how to heal and be better. So you wanted it to be very real. You didn't want it to be stale. You didn't want it to be clinical. That was so important to you.
It still is very important to me.
Thyroid, it is very important to you. But we want to remind everybody we're just two patients on this same road with you, and trying to help everybody and ourselves live better lives.
And there are probably some really wonderful other shows where they just go through and ask the questions and get the answers. And you can absolutely listen to those people. I'm sure Dr. Romm is on many, 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 many podcasts. And,
they're a little more clinical,
answering
right?
questions. Yeah, that are more clinical and things. That's not our show. That's not what we do. We talk about real things and as it happens.
And real life.
So,
right.
Yeah. So
These
that's
are
who we
lives.
are. That's what we do. And we're going through this with you. So we're definitely not perfect by any stretch. Usually I'm in my pajamas, or what my husband calls my moo-moo, my big honking robe. And, my hair's not brushed and stuff. But no, I brushed my hair today, and I put a cute little outfit on and all of that. And still I had, computer issues. So, you'd think after 2 years I would have this specifically,
Nope.
all aligned and everything. But, things happen. I mean, it was okay when I was in Costa Rica because I could blame it on Costa Rica. But now I'm in the States, so there's really no good excuse.
You know
Basically,
what, baby?
I'm just a thyroid patient like you guys.
2 years ago, we weren't perfect. And 2 years from then, we're still not perfect. And I love being imperfect.
Me too.
I love the fact that that's life,
you.
and then we just deal with it, right? That's what we have to do in life.
That is what we have to do in life. So live by our example. You probably already are.
Well, be sure to take a peek at Thyroid Nation Essentials. Dan and I are terrible salespeople, but we use them every day. People who are using them are loving them. We created them with love and light and just synthetic free with thyroid patients in mind, with the choices of essential oils and natural, organic, wild-crafted oils that would be helpful to some of the things that we experience. So be sure to check them out at Thyroid Nation Essentials.
And we don't have the little labels on our products that say vegan and paleo and GMO free
and cruelty free
and cruelty free and all those things.
Because that all
makes
things more expensive. Yeah.
So
to me, that should just be a baseline
standard.
You know?
Yes.
Exactly.
Standard. Right. So that's our standard. We're already there, baby.
And Brain Awake is one of our best-selling products.
Our best-selling products.
I got boobs on the mind. Best-selling products, and we also have, which works really well for fatigue, memory, concentration. It helps us out on those brain fog days, which hopefully we don't have, but we do. I do. And we also created a brain chill, some amazing potential for essential oils to help with anxiety while you're figuring things out. It's not a one and you're done. You don't want to be dependent on aromatherapy inhalers for the rest of your life, but this is helpful in the meantime while you're getting everything situated and figured out. So Brain Chill will be coming out here pretty soon. Dana's got some samples, and she's sniffing away.
I am
and we have some wonderful labels. Yep, and those will be out soon.
I've got them right here.
The sister product to Brain Chill.
And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I have a product that I love. It is my product. It is called Roses Are Red. I named it, and I use it every day. And I asked Tiffany the day, I was like, I use this every day, and I know you made this special for me, but I'd really like to sell it on Thyroid Nation Essentials because I have it sitting here on my desk and all these pretty labels, Thyroid Nation Essentials, and then just this, Roses Are Red written on the bottle.
That's my love in a bottle to you. That's an organic Bulgarian steam distilled rose essential oil. Infused in lavender, and that's my love to you. When you squirt that, you need to just think of me loving you.
I know. And now look at how many people you're going to be loving because we're going to include it in the line. There's going to be love everywhere.
Roses Are Red. It's just a pure rose oil. I was reading an article on rose oil this morning and its ability to heal in and of itself. It's pretty powerful. So
and we have
do that.
We have it diluted down to where it's very, very, very safe. There's no extra drops in there because if you think about it, Tiffany and I were talking, when you walk up, we were created to walk up and smell a rose, and you can't stand there for 20 minutes. You stand there for however long your breath is, and maybe you go back in for one more breath. But to make essential oil takes how many roses? I don't even know.
Like 10,000 tons.
Right.
1 ounce, I think it is.
So all of that is like in this little drop. So we're not meant to have a whole lot. So that's why we created these blends. None of them are specific. We have these blends that they are specific for your different things, your face and your body and whatever, because we're all thyroid patients and you can't help but get away from chemicals every day. I mean, there's just no way. You can't escape them. So these will benefit and these will be helpful and natural. So.
Well, and I want to remind people, too, to be cautious and to be aware. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking a product maker, particularly that uses essential oils, what percentage they actually use in there. Because there are sustainability issues with essential oils. And for me personally, as a formulator, I believe that we get out of the plants what we put in. And what I mean by that is if we have respect for their yield and respect for what they are and what they do, they allow us the healing that we're asking for. But if we abuse them and we don't care about their sustainability issues or their safety requirements or even their natural laws, we can be harmed from them. And so when we created Thyroid Nation Essentials, it was imperative to me that we followed all of the safety regulations that were current because essential oil laws and rules are changing all the time. I don't mean, anything technical. What I mean is that the research that's being done on essential oils right now is amazing. I mean, there were studies that came out on PubMed for lowering high blood pressure by inhalation of certain essential oils. We are learning every day. It's no different than a physician.
But that was sandalwood, right?
What's that?
Was it sandalwood?
No, that was...
what was that story? I forgot.
Bergamot. So the sandalwood was about... oh my goodness, it's antibacterial. Well, there were a couple of sandalwoods. I can't remember which one we talked about, but it's
about
antibacterial properties.
About it eventually raising blood pressure because they used it too long.
Oh, right. No, thank you. Okay, so perfect example. Recently, Robert Tisserand, who is literally the guru of safety of essential oils, reported a study that was done on inhaling sandalwood for longer than 20 minutes actually raised blood pressure. So that was somewhat shocking to the community because, of course, sandalwood is very well known for its ability to lower blood pressure and stress. But by inhaling it, and there were some concerns, particularly for me and a couple of people that mentioned about they used a mask, almost like a sleep apnea mask, for a continual inhalation for 20 minutes, okay? And so it ended up having the opposite effect. But we have understood that inhaling for longer than 30 minutes, as a general rule, safety guidelines are diffusing or inhaling no longer than 30 minutes at a time, because the body can go from being relieved and benefited from inhaling to all of a sudden being stressed by the continual scent, right? If we look at the natural laws of plants, that makes perfect sense. I mean, we need to listen, we need to go back to the plant itself and find out what it was all about rather than just looking at a little bottle and listening to people and what they say about it. But, diffusing shouldn't be done for longer than 30 minutes at a time with 30-minute breaks in between to give the body the ability to rest and reset. So, I just think that all of this is very important. And when we see essential oil products out there, we know nothing about the people who make them. We know nothing about their intention in the product, which to me, as a formulator, is very important. We should have talked about that with Aviva, being an herbalist.
Yes, we should have.
I'm sure she... Oh, for sure.
Oh, yes, definitely. That's a whole nother show.
It's a whole nother show. I've talked to people who are ingesting multiple essential oils a day, oftentimes ones that interfere with their medications, and we've gone cuckoo. We've gone cuckoo on essential oils, and the
safety guidelines are out there, but they're not necessarily adhered to. They're not adhered to or thought about because you think that essential oils are just so natural and good for you. Okay, so this is like this is how we live. More is more, and more is better.
More.
Right.
Less
so
is more.
Just think. I think. Let's see. What is this? Thank you, Alana. 40 pounds of roses for 1 ounce of oil. 40 pounds of roses for 1 ounce of oil. So 1 drop. Can you imagine the concentration that's in 1 drop? I mean, were we really meant and made to smell that much, that long, and in this concentrated force? I don't believe we were.
Right.
So
no,
essential oils are wonderful and beneficial and supportive, but we need to be a lot smarter than we are.
See, there's just rules there.
Right.
I think it's important. Right. Exactly.
Right. Or however many pounds or bushels or whatever it is for a rose, rose essential oil. It doesn't matter.
The point of it is that the potency is so much greater.
Right.
That's very important to understand. Is you can have literally all of the essential oil off of 10 plants in 1 drop in certain circumstances.
Right.
And it doesn't apply. Some are heavier yielders than others. So but the point of it is you have a large concentration. This isn't the same thing. Putting 1 drop of basil in a stew is not the same thing as a handful of basil leaves. That's
right.
Really important to understand. Right.
That is. And that's you said that so well. And we're just really passionate about it. So we are not anti-essential oils at all. In fact, we are pro-essential oils, but we just want everybody to use them responsibly. So we will be discussing that with Thyroid Nation Essentials a little bit more, but it's our show, so we got to do it today. Yay!
It was a quick tidbit in there.
It's a little quick tidbit. So, Again, guys, thank you. The show is for you. Thank you to our special callers. Thank you to Dr. Aviva Romm. You made this day really special for us. We really appreciate you joining us on this journey. Don't forget to follow Thyroid Nation at thyroidnation.com and, of course, on all of the essential oil, on all the social media platforms. See, it's on the brain. I'm going to shove one of these things up my nose here in a minute.
Oh, my goodness.
And join us in the Hashis and Graves Facebook group on Facebook, because we let you know who the upcoming guests are. So, and, you can ask questions, and there's lots of support. So join us there, too.
Absolutely. And, of course, we repeat this every show, but it is of paramount importance, as you could hear, even just talking about essential oils, applies with this essential oils as well as anything that you do, herbal formulas, what have you. We always want to remind you that wellness is a journey and takes continual maintenance and evaluation. Please make sure to always listen to that dynamic system of yours that is unique to you, and be mindful of what it is telling you all the time, whether you need to stop and reset, whether an essential oil isn't working for you, whether an herb is working for you, whether an essential oil is working for you. Whatever it is, that voice is unique to you, and it's much smarter than we often give it credit for. So please be mindful of what it's telling you.
And just a side note, just because I like bananas doesn't mean that I'm not allergic to them, right? I mean, everybody's different.
Or that you can eat 10 a day.
And that I could eat 10 a day. So, my body says, this is not good for you. Sometimes I don't listen to it. But it is screaming at me. So I need to listen more often. But sometimes I don't care. Okay. Anyway.
Oh, my God.
Against the message, but, it's one of those days. So, no, I'm just teasing. Everybody
You're
gets
real, honey. That's life.
Yeah, that's me.
That's life. We don't all do everything perfect all the time. You know what I mean?
No.
Life is full of bloopers and learning lessons.
That's right. This is Dana, your Thyroid Nation Gringatica from Colorado Springs.
And Tiffany Mladinich.
Bringing the collective voice of thyroid thrivers worldwide, so that together, united, we heal. Thanks, guys. Great show. Happy 2 years.
Happy 2 years. Bye.